We go about our day assuming the internet is built on solid ground. Every time you check a bank balance, load a feed, or stream a movie, you are trusting an invisible layer of web servers to keep your data secure and moving smoothly. But this timeline tracks the foundational code of the web over the last 2 decades, and it shows that the ground is heavily cracked. Security researchers recently uncovered a flaw here called CVE 202642945, dubbed the Nginx Rift. It is a critical 9.2 severity vulnerability buried deep inside the Nginx web server code, and it has been sitting there completely undetected since 2008. The scale of exposure is massive. Nginx powers roughly 30% of all active websites. Because of this flaw, anyone running the server with specific rewrite configurations is completely exposed. An attacker doesn't even need login credentials. They can simply send a crafted HTTP request to execute remote code and take full control of the system. If you manage a server, you need to check your configuration logs right now. Upgrading to Nginx version 1.30.1 patches the vulnerability. If you cannot update immediately, you must disable the rewrite module or deploy strict firewall rules to filter out suspicious traffic. An 18-year gap between the creation of a bug and its discovery shows how fragile our digital infrastructure really is. The literal foundation of the web isn't inherently secure. It only stays standing through active, relentless scrutiny. That need for scrutiny extends directly to the people building the future of technology. Right now in an Oakland courtroom, a jury is deciding a landmark case between Elon Musk and OpenAI. Musk contributed millions to OpenAI in its early days, arguing it was founded as a charitable trust meant to protect humanity. He claims CEO Sam Altman and President Greg Brockman deceived him, abandoning that safety-first mission to turn the research lab into an $852 billion profit engine controlled by Microsoft. Musk's own commitment to the case, however, is drawing scrutiny. He skipped the trial's closing arguments entirely, choosing instead to travel to China with President Trump. His legal team had to apologize to the jury, leaving observers to question how closely his actions align with his stated goal of fighting for human safety. On the other side, Altman's defense team argues that building artificial general intelligence is incredibly expensive. They maintain that shifting to a capped profit model was the only realistic way to attract the billions of dollars in capital required to keep the research moving forward. The central question for the jury comes down to trust. Their verdict on whether Altman's pivot was legally justifiable will dictate how AI companies are governed, setting a strict legal boundary for corporate accountability in the industry. Corporate accountability looks very different when applied to our immediate finances. Amazon is currently facing a class action lawsuit for allegedly withholding hundreds of millions of dollars in refunds from its own customers. The issue stems from a series of import tariffs applied during the Trump administration. Amazon passed those extra costs directly to buyers. But in February 2026, the Supreme Court struck down those tariffs in a 6-3 decision, ruling them entirely unconstitutional. Thousands of companies immediately filed claims with Customs and Border Protection to recover the money. Amazon, however, hasn't filed a single claim. The lawsuit alleges the company is intentionally avoiding the refund process to maintain political favor and protect its lucrative government web contracts, leaving customers footing the bill. When major platforms squeeze their users, those users find their own loopholes. Take the recent price hikes for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. Microsoft raised the monthly fee to $23, but players quickly uncovered a workaround to bypass the hike entirely. This visual equation demonstrates how the trick works. By purchasing and stacking 10 months of cheap EA Play codes, and then activating a single month of Game Pass Ultimate, Microsoft's system automatically converts the whole block into Ultimate time. Players are securing 10 months of access for around £77, which is nearly $100 in savings compared to the standard rate. When corporations use their scale to absorb refunds or hike subscription costs, consumers actively weaponize the platform's own technical architecture to find financial balance. Some companies recognize this growing skepticism and are adjusting their pitch. At WWDC 2026, Apple is set to reveal a major overhaul to its ecosystem, positioning themselves as the secure alternative in the AI race. They are launching a standalone Siri application in iOS 27 that operates much like a modern chatbot, but the defining feature is an auto-delete function, allowing users to automatically wipe their entire chat history after 30 days, or up to a year. This diagram illustrates the data flow of Apple's new private cloud compute infrastructure. To make the new features work, Siri relies on Google's Gemini AI models, but the prompts are processed entirely within Apple's shielded servers, meaning Google never gains access to the user data. By defaulting to a 30-day wipe, the system physically cannot build a persistent, long-term psychological profile of the user. The context literally ceases to exist. This is a sharp contrast to competitors like ChatGPT or Gemini, which rely heavily on retaining massive logs of user conversations to train and refine their future models. In an economy defined by a systemic trust deficit, privacy has transitioned into a high-end luxury product, engineered specifically to justify the price of premium hardware. We spend a lot of time navigating a digital landscape defined by buried server bugs, unreturned tariffs, and high-stakes courtroom battles over code. The most striking pushback against that fatigue might actually be happening in film. Dwarf Studios is currently producing Hidari, a Japanese stop-motion feature where characters are meticulously carved entirely out of wood. Keanu Reeves recently signed on to voice the lead character, throwing massive global attention onto a production that relies on centuries-old Japanese craftsmanship. Every frame requires animators to physically sculpt and manipulate solid blocks of wood. It yields a rough, physical aesthetic that a computer-generated render cannot replicate. The plot follows a master carpenter who loses his arm to the trail, builds himself a lethal mechanical prosthetic, and carves his own path to justice. The story mirrors the production itself, an individual using their bare hands to reclaim what was taken from them. By bringing a Western icon like Reeves into a uniquely Japanese medium, the film bridges historical puppet theater traditions with modern action storytelling to make a transnational artistic statement. Whether patching an ignored web server, finding platform pricing loopholes, or supporting human-made art, the core requirement is attention. The infrastructure we rely on is flawed, and the companies managing it are focused on their own survival. The balance of power only shifts when we stop being passive observers and start exercising our own agency.